Update. Am I the a-hole for accidentally calling out a new colleague on lying about her language skills? Original story. Last week, a new colleague, Kathy, 33 female, started at my 25 female workplace. She instantly stood out in the team because she seems like someone who is very loud and assertive. Two of my colleagues, me and Kathy, were having coffee in a break room. We were the only ones in there and we were sitting far apart when the subject of travel was brought up. My colleague said she wasn't booking trips anymore because it'll probably get cancelled because of the bug anyway. Kathy immediately cut in about how sad she is because she travels so often, and she goes on these far exotic trips to Europe as her hobby. When I think exotic, I think the Bahamas or something instead of Europe, but cool. Kathy then jokes about how all this no-travel business is making her fear that she'll lose some of her foreign language skills. I asked what languages she spoke. She claimed to be fluent in 3 European languages, among which were French and Dutch. Kathy said she was at a native speaker level and went on about how people in Europe were always surprised when they found out she wasn't from there. I was excited because I never get to speak Dutch over here. I was raised in Belgium, which has 3 national languages, French and Dutch, which are my mother tongues and the most commonly spoken there, and German. It's quite common to be pretty fluent in at least 2 out of the 3 languages in Belgium because you're required to learn them at school, along with English, from a young age. I told Kathy, oh fun, we have something in common then, in Dutch. She immediately pulled this sour face and asked me if that was supposed to be Dutch. I said yes. She laughed awkwardly and said she couldn't understand because I have a terrible accent and must not be that good at speaking it. Now see, I don't have an accent. I speak Dutch more fluently than I speak English. I told Kathy that I grew up speaking Dutch and speak it to my family all the time. She got miffed and asked what languages I speak and where I'm from. I told her I'm from Belgium, so I speak French, and I added what she just said you speak as well. Cool, we can speak French instead. I acknowledged that I was a bit of a prick here, because by that point I knew she probably lied about speaking French as well. She then shoved her chair back and angrily got up, said whatever, and stumped off. It was awkward. My other colleagues just kinda shrugged and said she shouldn't have lied. However, she later approached me and told me I embarrassed her by acting superior about my European heritage. I told her there was no way for me to know she'd lie about speaking those languages. She rolled her eyes and told me I was immature. Then a colleague told me that Kathy had called me a little B-word who enjoys bullying new colleagues behind my back later. I don't think I was a bully at all, but I don't want this to turn into a huge thing. Do I just apologize to keep the peace? Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. I embarrassed her by acting superior about my European heritage. I mean, not that. But you are superior to her in that you don't feel the need to lie to impress people. Kathy called me a little B-word who enjoys tormenting new colleagues. Oh, Kathy. Talking aloud in the mirror again? Kathy calling Opie immature is rich, especially when she insulted Opie and used a derogatory term. I honestly would report Kathy to HR in case she decides to submit a complaint against Opie and spin the narrative to her favor. She already showed her character by lying at the break room. I would be in high alert to what lie she will tell to HR. Not the a-hole. She claimed to speak a language. It's not your fault that she lied. It's a risk she ran in telling the lie. This is literally a plot device in comedy movies. Someone purports to be fluent in a language to a person who actually is fluent. Said fluent person gets excited and says, OMG, yay, in the foreign language. And a person who lied gets flustered and exposed. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She said she spoke the language. You spoke to her in the language. She didn't understand it. She got embarrassed. The problem is her. Edit. I'm not sure about escalating this to HR, which a lot of people have told me I have to do. I feel like this might make me look immature to the rest of my colleagues, of which I am the youngest, and it might not need to go that far. It depends on if Kathy is willing to put this behind her and be professional. If all else fails, I do have witnesses who would be honest about what happened, so I think I might be in the clear if she tries to twist the story. Some people think she might not have understood me because she's fluent in Dutch but learned it in the Netherlands, which has different accents. While it is true that the Netherlands and Flanders have different accents, I didn't speak a very specific dialect like West Flemish or something. I spoke the general Dutch you'd see in the news in Flanders. I didn't speak quickly to try to make it incomprehensible to set her up. I genuinely believed she spoke Dutch because that's what she was saying, so I talked to her in normal, conversational Dutch. The same kind of Dutch I'd use in a work environment back in my home country. The same kind of Dutch I used with friends from the Netherlands. And now for the update. Many people gave the advice to go to HR. Others said not to go to HR because that would be escalating the situation. I decided not to go to HR right then, but I did take the advice to write down what happened, with the time and the names of the other colleagues present just in case. I thought the situation might blow over, because Kathy was probably just embarrassed. Well, I was wrong. Kathy kept being cold to me, rolling her eyes at me in meetings and talking behind my back. Another colleague came to confront me at one point to ask me why I'd been so mean. Apparently, Kathy was telling a different version of what happened. Kathy said that I'd said mean things to her in Dutch and was making fun of her in Dutch, so no one else but her could understand. She was smart enough to only tell those stories to colleagues who weren't actually there for it. Word got around and it turned into a bigger issue, with a couple people actually questioning my character, mostly just colleagues that don't work very close to me. HR got wind of it after a while, and I got called in close to a month after the incident. They had already met with Kathy, and she'd told them the "she cursed me out in Dutch and was very mean to me" story. I told them the full story and everything that happened after. They asked me if there was anyone else present who could confirm this, so those colleagues came and told them that Kathy had lied about speaking a language, stormed out, and then started calling me a B-word, etc. to others. They thanked me for my time, and I got on with work. Nothing happened until a week later when I was informed that Kathy was asked to leave. Apparently, Kathy had doubled down on the lies and told everyone I was the one lying, and she did speak those languages. So my boss told her in that case she'd have no problem talking to one of our Canadian colleagues, who wasn't involved in the situation, in French in front of him, just to confirm. At this point, Kathy admitted she had been lying. It turned out she didn't speak a word of French either, or Norwegian, which was the third language she was lying about. This was enough for them to let her go, because part of the reason they hired her was that they were so impressed by her speaking multiple languages and work experiences she'd had abroad. The work experiences were made up as well. I'm just happy it's over. I'm confident it wasn't really my fault it blew up now. If it wasn't me who caught her in a lie, someone else probably would have down the line. The few people who kind of believed her ended up coming to me and apologizing for questioning me about what happened, so that's all sorted. Edit. Some people asking why they didn't test her language skills in the hiring process. Our jobs don't actually require us to speak Dutch, French, or Norwegian. I think they probably just saw it as a plus or something that made her stand out from other candidates. Kathy at next job. Okay, no common languages. I speak a dead language. Colleague. Oh really? Say something. Kathy, sweating. Dead language as in speaking to the dead. Colleague. Huh? Kathy, panicked. I previously worked at the coroner's office. I would love to know what was going through Kathy's mind when she decided to escalate and double down on the lies. Given that she also made up other large chunks of her resume, I think maybe she subscribes to the theory that people will be too stunned at the audacity to do anything about it. I remember reading this and thinking, why the hell would someone lie about being able to speak another language? It's such an easy found out lie that's laughable. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling a neighbor she can't expect only old people to live in our street? I moved into my house about 2 or 3 years ago. I'm 30, look 20, with a family. It's also a British town, and my house is semi-detached in a street of terraced houses. I'm quite the introvert, so apart from my direct neighbors, I really made no attempt at getting to know the rest around my house. That being said, if someone speaks to me, I will happily speak to them. Cue to the incident. An old-age pensioner came up to me while I was taking stuff to my car, and she started asking questions. The usual stuff you ask new neighbors, but then she asked me when I planned on moving, which I thought was quite unusual. I told her I had no plans to move yet, and then she went on to talk about how young people have started moving into the street, and it is much so noisy, especially those with families. She knew I have kids, but they barely spend any time outside, and how she wished it went back to a street of old people. For about 10 minutes, there was nothing but low-key insults about young people. I couldn't really excuse myself as I had stuff to do with my car that was time-sensitive. So in the end, I just said, you can't expect only old people to live in a street. Eventually, they grow old and die. Maybe wait a few years and we'll be old, and you'll have your street back if you're still around. She looked at me as if I just murdered her family and walked off. In the heat of the moment, I felt justified. But thinking back on it, I pretty much told her she will be dead soon, which no one really likes hearing. She just wouldn't stop talking about the good old times. Now for the comments. Not Day Hall. Hello, fellow British person moving to an elderly area. I have had very similar conversations. My entire street appears to be in the 60 to 80 year range. I think they've forgotten other people exist. They get mad when my 4-year-old plays outside and have made comments about how this trampoline and paddling pool are an eyesore in our back garden in our private space, but I guess they can see it from the windows. And how they missed a previous resident who was such a sweet old man who had a lovely garden that I've ruined with my kids' toys. He died. Sometimes these people need to be reminded about how selfish they're being, and that retirement villages exist if they only ever want to encounter other elderly people. I certainly don't want anyone to die anytime soon, but at the same time, I really hope a few more families move into my area. My grandmother in the US had a young family moved into the neighborhood, and they're all delighted to have a child around. They go to the child's school place, have her over to bake cookies, take her to swim lessons. Kid got a dozen new grandparents. That is sweet. US here, and we were one of the few young families when we moved into our, back then, mostly older neighborhood. One of the original owners was still there when we moved in, and she asked me to say hi when I walked my baby down the street. She was an adorable woman who happily shared a 70-year history of the neighborhood. But we mostly heard how happy everyone was to have kids in the neighborhood. Not Day Hall. This woman wants to stand around in your yard and insult you, ask when you plan on leaving, and make you feel unwelcome. Yet she can't handle you saying anything back? Being old doesn't automatically entitle her to respect, nor does it give her a free pass to act like that. Ooh, similar situation here. English town, previously full of old people, and a few young people have moved in. The old folks are genuinely horrendous. Everyone 55, or maybe 60s? Basically those not retired. And under is trundling along, trying to get along with their neighbors, being respectful while still living their lives. And then there's this huddle of old 65-plus a-holes, constantly moaning about gardens being a mess, people sitting outside after 7 p.m. Anyone has barbecue? Better not go on past 6. Want a bit of appropriately volumed, non-offensive music playing mid-late afternoon? Well, you may as well be Hitler. Not Day Hall. And I don't know when it got to be standard that older people are the crappiest, most entitled, and relenting horrible human beings, but this is definitely the case today. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my friend a home? Me, 32 female, and my husband, 36 male, have a 3-month-old baby. It's been very stressful, and I've had really bad PPD. So it's taken me a while to come to terms with life again. I'm getting there, but still very fragile. I have a friend, Terry, 45 female, who I've known for a couple of years. She's been fine. We aren't great friends, but we're okay. She's from Italy, so doesn't have many friends here and came here with her husband. She doesn't work nor have any interest in working. It's unclear if she can work due to her visa, but she has never stated she can't work, just that she actively chooses not to. I asked a mutual friend, and they said that she can legally work and has done occasional jobs here, but then didn't want to, so stopped. Me and my husband have recently bought a 4-bedroom house for our growing family. It's really stretched us financially, but will be worth it in the long run. So the issue. Terry has recently had to leave her husband. Turned out he was secretly taking substances and he was pretty horrendous to her. She came to stay with us for a few days after it happened, and it was really intense. I cried most nights as I couldn't support her and manage my own stuff, and she just wanted to be involved in everything when I needed and asked for a bit of space. Eventually, 5 days later, I sat her down and asked her to find somewhere else to stay as I was really struggling. She was fine with it, and we spoke for a while about why. A friend of hers paid for her to stay in an Airbnb for a month, which is great. But she's now running out of days. She called me a few times crying, saying she will be homeless and has no one else to rely on, and I need to pay for Airbnb or give her a room. I've really struggled with this because as much as I want to help a person in need, I really can't live with her, and she's already told a mutual friend that she plans on just staying with us for a year till she has to go home. I spoke to some friends and they are divided on it. Some say I'm the a-hole for not offering her a room when we have space, and others have said my mental health is too fragile to manage it. Internet citizens, what say you? Not the a-hole, not even a little. Terry could have looked for a job, filed for divorce, or found other arrangements. Instead, she decided to come back to your home, where she will presumably mooch off you, not paying rent, utility, or food. You need to prioritize yourself here. PPD is no joke. New parenting is hard. Terry can find another person to mooch off. No kidding! And the fact that she's planning to stay with Opie for a year is presumptuous and entitled. Opie needs to focus on Opie's needs. Why aren't the friends calling you the a-hole offering to give her a place to stay? Not the a-hole. It's easy to be generous with someone else's house, money and time. Opie's friends are a-holes. So in defense of the friends, most of them don't have any spare room, so Terry would be on a sofa. But you are right. I'm not sure they'd offer their own spare rooms if they had them. Have lived out of my car with my dog because of DV. Couches were freaking great. Super grateful for everyone who took us in, but also incredibly grateful for the people who respected our friendship enough to tell me, no, they can't handle it right then. It's so much better to get an honest no, and never build up a secret resentment for offering a service they couldn't actually emotionally afford. I hope things are better for you now. That's a tough situation. I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you.